Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Coffee with Katie. I have my coffee as my love language mug. So today's video is going to be my October reading wrap up. So let's just get into my thoughts on all of the books that I ended up reading in October. The first book that I finished in October was Alchemized by Sin Yu. This, much like Manacled, kind of broke me. It's a wonderful book. 5 stars, okay? For some reason, when I was trying to rate this in my Goodreads and stuff, it wasn't letting me, but this is a 5-star read, much like Manacled was for me. I feel like I should probably do like a ranting video about this, but I feel like the difference between this and Manacled, while it's not the same world or anything like that, the differences are interesting because this is necromancy and that kind of a magic and a lot of alchemy. And Manacled is the Harry Potter world and it's like Death Eaters and dark arts and stuff like that. But it's interesting as a reader because you can only experience one of them for the first time, right? As in like the story. Because the story arc is very similar in both. So if you've read Manacled, you know how this is going to go. If you've read Alchemized, you know how Manacled's going to go. But the way it gets there is a tiny bit different because of the magic system and stuff like that. But you're following Helena, who is a healer in this magical world, and they're in this huge war between these like necromancy, undying people, and the holdfasts, which are like the good guys, and they don't use necromancy or anything like that, and they think that it's wrong and evil. And so they're fighting this war, and it's really heavy. Like, it deals with a lot of hard topics and war and just brutal things that happen in this world. And if you're very sensitive to that, I would be careful reading this, but it's the way the author builds the story and how she, like, it feels so desperate and desolate and hopeless, and then it kind of, the story just, like, builds upon itself. So good. I don't want to even say much because I don't want to spoil it, but there's just so many details, and I loved what she did with it in her traditionally published work. I'm curious to see anything else this author will come out with because this was just a masterpiece, as the fan fiction and as this, and I was so excited to read it, and when I was reading it, I like didn't want it to end, but it has to end at some point. It's chunky, it's like 1,000 pages, but it really does build. I think the hardest part of reading this is that there's a lot to this world, and in Manacled, the world is already laid out for you. Like, you're already familiar with it, you already kind of know the ins and outs of it, but for this, you're building it from the bottom, and it's a lot to keep track of. Some of the terms and stuff, I didn't really, like, completely grasp everything, I just kind of read and was, like, immersed. But there are a lot of things in the world that a glossary would be helpful for, and it's not in this book. Other people have made them, but it's not, like, in the book itself. But it's so good. Hauntingly beautiful, heartbreaking, amazing. You just like sit there in the void afterwards and you just want to kind of cry and also just think it's such a beautiful story. It's the same. It's the same feeling. I think when I read Manacled for the first time, obviously this doesn't hit quite as hard because I already, again, had the plot points, had the story for the most part. I was in a reading slump for, I think, months, and was just sitting there in the void of ending the story, wanting to kind of, like, reread it. It's kind of the same vibe. I will say that for this, there are a couple of different points of the plot that are changed, and I actually really liked what was done with it. I liked that those things changed. I liked that it made it more complicated and more, like, morally gray almost. I liked that. I liked that those things were changed, and that it made it kind of darker. So... But on the flip side of it, the other elements of assault that were extremely upsetting is a lot less in this book, and I appreciated that very much. So, give this a shot if you want, and you feel like you can handle the dark themes. Amazing. And then I read, to kind of cleanse my palate, I read Pumpkin Spice and Everything Nice by Katie Citatelli-Kuch, I think is how you say her last name. This is just kind of a cute, fluffy YA kind of contemporary romance, but just kind of like a YA book. It's a cute little quick read. The main character's mom runs a coffee shop and she works in the coffee shop, and they don't have things like pumpkin spice lattes. They just like do all their stuff homemade, and they just have their little niche of things that they do. And then a chain coffee shop opens up from across the street, and it's actually this boy from her school that's very cute. It's his parents that are running it, and they have pumpkin spice lattes, and it starts this feud kind of between them. Not really. It's more like the small business owner is kind of worried a little bit, and the daughter is super concerned and feels like the success of her mom's coffee shop kind of is falling on her, and she wants to kind of beat the pumpkin spice craze, and she wants people to come. And she's mad that coffee shop opened from across the street, but the boy from her school is kind of likes her and doesn't see the problem and wants to help her. And there's just like tension between family and friends. And one of the reasons I wanted to read this is because she talks about how much she hates pumpkin spice lattes. But then kind of one of the plot points of the book is she tries to make the perfect one. That upset me a little bit. I felt like she was a traitor to my side, but it was a cute little quick read. The main character was a little bit annoying because she just would not let things go at all, even small things. But I can also understand things feeling like way too out of control for her and unfair as a teenager, because that's what she was. It made sense, but it was a little bit annoying. It was a nice little read to kind of get into the spirit of fall. Still don't like pumpkin spice lattes, but the book was cute. I gave it 3 stars. Then I read Alchemy of Secrets by Stephanie Garber. Now, I just posted a full book review of this, so I'm not going to really talk about this much, but you're following a character who is told by the Watchman, this like mythical character, that she's going to die at midnight tomorrow if she doesn't find the alchemical heart, which is a magical object that people haven't seen in years / may not even exist. It's kind of like trying to find the Holy Grail. And this was Stephanie Garber's debut adult fantasy. And I feel like there's an asterisk to that because I feel like the only thing that was adult about this is that she used cuss words. And that was really it. That was legitimately the only difference. And it felt like she was just trying to be adult, which kind of fell a little bit flat for me. But I go into a lot more in-depth thoughts about this in my book review. I just thought that this was kind of lacking for me. It didn't deliver what I was hoping for as somebody who loves the Caraval universe and would consider her one of my favorite authors. You can see this wasn't it for me, but it wasn't bad. I gave it 3 stars, but it was not what I was hoping for, and I found it a little bit disappointing. But check out my review video if you want to hear more thoughts. And then I read Rebel Witch by Kristen Ciccarelli. This is the book 2 in the Crimson Moth duology. I actually really liked this. I liked it more than the first one, which is a little bit strange because I know people really liked the first one, and I liked it, but I felt like I didn't love it like everybody else did, but I really enjoyed the second one for sure. I enjoyed that we get a lot more spells and information on the witches. I liked the tension and the impossible situations for Gideon and Rune, and the war that's like looming just hit for me, you know? I did guess the twist, and ending in almost the beginning of the book, which was interesting, but still really enjoyable. It's pretty fast-paced as well, and felt like kind of danger was lurking around every corner, so I enjoy that kind of pacing, which is maybe why I liked this one more, but it was really good. I really liked it, and I think it kind of brought the duology up for me a little bit, but I ended up giving it 4 stars. And obviously, because this is the second book, I can't tell you a lot about it, but the first one is that it's a witch and a witch hunter, and they're kind of trying to play each other to a degree, and he's trying to find this person called the Crimson Moth that keeps, like, saving witches, and she's trying to save witches and also not get caught by the witch hunters. Really fun duology. And then I read a NetGalley audio arc that I had called Dragonfires Everywhere by Hazel Beck, and I didn't know this at the time, but this is book 4 in the Witch Lore series, but you can read them standalone. It's like there is a connecting plot, but me coming into this, I didn't feel super lost because it follows each individual. It's like a couple for each book, so it'll follow this girl and this man and this girl and this man, you know, like each one is their own story, but they are all friends and they all do intersect. But I didn't find myself super lost in it. It touched on a couple of things in the past, but nothing that would make you super lost or confused. It did kind of make me want to read the rest of them, but this book was really easy to listen to, and the story had enough going on to keep me interested. Essentially, you're following a witch who comes back to her home that's like this magical mansion, and there's a dragon kind of wooden structure that's always been in her home, and it breaks out and comes to life, and it's a dragon, and he's a dragon shifter. And then there's a bunch of stuff going on with them being kind of trying to become leaders of the coven and magical threats around the town. It was fun. I really liked the magic and the dragon just spontaneously appearing. When they thought that they were extinct, they thought dragons were extinct and all the mythical creatures were extinct. I liked all the different members of the coven, but how it also focused on the individual couple of the book, the main couple of the story, you know. I enjoyed the overall theme of wanting to defeat evil and needing to band together, or having to band together and to work with people you maybe not want to work with someone you disagree with creatures you don't get along with. I liked those elements a lot. It was a good story and kind of nice theming for fall or winter, and I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. And then I read The Solace of Sharp Claws by Lana Pekarchek. I think I'm still saying her name wrong, but this is book 2 in the Season of the Wolf in the Fate Guardian series. And this is, I mentioned this before, but I just kind of want to get through this series because there's so many of them. And I want to get through Season of the Wolf so I can get to the vampires, and then I want to get through the elves so I can get to the crows. It's a whole thing. But this was fine. Easy to read, fun enough. I did really like the female character in this book. She was a boss, and I appreciated that about her. Like I said, I'm more interested and curious about the vampires and the crows, but I also want to get the whole story arc. So I'm still going to continue. This one was fine. The Fae Shifter in this one is not my favorite, so I wasn't super interested in his story. I'm kind of curious, honestly, about the next one. But you do get hints of the overarching plot, and you do get hints of other shifters because they're in the story, like they all live in the same place. So I'm going to continue, and one more book for the wolves, and then we'll see how I like the other seasons. I feel like none of these books blow me away, but they're fun enough that I want to kind of see what happens. And I gave it 3 stars. And then I read The Princess Knight by Kate Jacobs. This was one of my most anticipated releases for the year, and this book was enjoyable, but it wasn't as silly and frivolous as I was originally anticipating it to be. So it was kind of pitched as Legally Blonde, but medieval. So she is a princess, and she's jilted by this prince that she thought was going to propose to her, and then he does it, and he kind of actually says, like, I'm not interested in you, and you're not powerful enough. And so she goes to this military academy to try to become a knight. And the, like, I can't remember if he's a captain or a general. I think he's a captain. Kind of takes pity on her as she's like flouncing onto the training field and helps her train, and he develops a thing for her and thinks she's really cute and stuff and such. So I thought it was gonna be like really funny, and she was gonna be kind of ditzy and mess up, and it wasn't that, which isn't a bad thing, but that's what I thought it was, you know? So I thought it would be a lot more humor focused. It was actually pretty serious the whole time, and I did like it despite that. I still think it's a good story. It's just, I was hoping for it being in like this range, but it was over here, you know? I also ended up guessing the twist because like during all of this, obviously something is coming up as a threat to the kingdom. So I did guess the twist, but I mean, that's okay. A lot of people can do that, you know? I really liked the main female character, but I just wish the story had gone down a little differently. Overall, a really cute and good story. This is like more of an adventure story, which I do enjoy, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. And then I read The Winter's Curse by Marie Rakowski. This is an old series, but I had been really wanting to pick it up, and it was my shelf pick for October, and I ended up reading it and really enjoying it. This book was really good. The synopsis is super vague, so you're following Kestrel, who goes into this market. She's like, she's not a princess per se, but she's like a high-standing society lady. Yeah, she's the general's daughter, that's right. And she goes into this like town square, and they're selling slaves, and she ends up taking pity on one because she doesn't want them to be treated unfairly, and so treated poorly, so she buys him, and they kind of develop this like friendship, and it is a little bit inappropriate because he's a slave and she's not, and it brings tension into the society, and rumors start flying about her. But and this isn't even in the synopsis. It's super, super vague. But she's like, what if this was like the worst mistake I ever made? So essentially he's part of a rebellion that is trying to take back the kingdom because her kingdom won this war and enslaved all of the people. And the enslaved people are understandably tired of that. And so they are like planning a rebellion to take back the kingdom. So this book was really good. I felt the pacing was good and I didn't really get bored at all or lose interest, even though it does take a little while for the story to really get going and the plot to really develop. I also found myself really sad for Ronan. That honestly made me sad. He's like a side character and I just feel like he gets totally shafted and I feel bad for him. I liked him and I wanted better for him. It's also interesting to see two characters who like each other also hate each other because they're on opposite sides of the previous war. You know, slave and master, but that dynamic keeps on changing and how they still have this tension. And I get why this series is hyped, but I've heard that the books keep getting better, and so I'm excited to continue because I really enjoyed this one, and I've heard like reviews saying like, oh, I was kind of ambivalent to the first one but loved the second and stuff like that. So hopefully this series just continues to get better, and I ended up giving this 4 stars. And then I was able to read The Rebel and the Rose by Catherine Doyle. This is book 2 in the City of Phantom series. I actually thought this was a duology. It's not. It's at least a trilogy. I've mentioned before that I really liked the first one, The Dagger and the Flame. So I can't tell you a lot about this one, but in the first one, it's like the cloaks and the daggers. The cloaks are like spies and thieves. So they use darkness in their cloaks to hide them, and they steal and pickpocket and stuff like that. The daggers are assassins, and they're an assassin guild, and they're kind of evil, and they have to take this magical substance called shade that will slowly deteriorate you. Super interesting magic system. And through the events of the first book, something happens with the 2 main characters in the first book, and they end up kind of on opposite sides. And then the Rebel and the Rose, they kind of have to work together a little bit in this like tenuous alliance. I really, really liked this. A good sequel. I really liked how the world really opened up a lot. And you get a lot more of the magic that was started towards the end of the book and the lore that goes with that in book 1. And like I mentioned, I for some reason thought this was a duology, but it's not. I'm excited to see what happens in the next book, but I'm going to have to wait a while. Who knows how long. And I believe the first book was the summary said, like, if you like Shadow and Bone and something else, it's compared to Shadow and Bone. And I remember reading the first book and being like, huh? It makes a lot more sense in this book. This one feels much more Grishaverse than the first one did. And I also enjoyed the tenuous alliance between the cloaks and the daggers that had to happen in this book for this like mission that they all go on together. It was fun. I really enjoyed it. I'm curious to see what all happens now that we've had more plot and world development. I gave it 4 stars. And then I was able to read Never Ever After by Sue Lynn Tan. This was my first book by Sue Lynn Tan. It was also a NetGalley audio arc that I had. And in this book, you're following a girl who... I'll just read you this. It says, the sweeping fantasy romance inspired by Cinderella in a Chinese fairy tale. Essentially, the main character is a thief. She kind of like swindles and tricks people and reads their fortunes. And through a series of events, she ends up meeting this like general in the army of a warring kingdom. Not a warring kingdom. There's an alliance for political reasons, but it's very... it's on very thin ice. Like, they're very tenuous and aggressive towards each other, but also not fighting. So it's kind of weird. But, you know, politics, complicated. She ends up meeting him, but she also goes to the palace and meets the prince, and he's very intrigued by her. And it's a lot of her being caught up in an object was taken from her, and she has to go to the kingdom to get it back, and it just becomes this like really treacherous and perilous journey, because not even the journey itself, but like being in the palace, a lot of people want her dead, a lot of people don't like her because she's from a lower class family, and it's like the prince is kind of vicious and maybe wicked, and everyone's kind of vicious and really wicked, so it seems like she's just trying to survive and do what she needs to survive, and it just seems like it's like one thing after another after another. So I really liked the adventure aspect of this book and the darker fairy tale vibes. It doesn't really take that long for the story to start, and you really get kind of thrust into it. Do one situation after another after another. A lot of power plays and using things to get leverage over one another. And I liked that it was easy to read, because you're just kind of like on the adventure waiting to see what happens. And honestly, I felt like this seemed to be pitched as more romance focused and love triangle-y, and it's not. I would say romance is one of the smallest parts of the book, a very minor subplot, and it may become bigger in the rest of the series because this is the first book in a series. But that's fine, and I didn't mind that at all. I didn't mind that it wasn't the focus of the book because I was interested in the journey and enjoying the journey. But if that was something we were hoping for, I would just be a little bit cautious of that. I'm excited for the story to open up more and to see what happens in book 2 with the world and the characters. And overall, a great first experience with Su Lin Tan. When I give it 4 stars, I don't know if I said that. And then last but not least, I also got an audio arc for the Grimoire Grammar School Parent-Teacher Association by Caitlin Rozakis. I really enjoyed Dreadful when I read it and was able to read this audio arc, listen to this audio arc, and ended up really liking this one as well. It's really cute. I really like the way this author writes, and she's just really funny. And so the premise of this book is that there's 2 human parents that have this daughter, and through a series of unfortunate events, she is actually turned into a werewolf, and she's 5. So they're obviously like ostracized by society, and they have to go and find this magical world, you know, not like it's another world, but like the magical people of the world, and they have to enroll her in this school called the Grimoire Grammar School. And it's a prestigious magical school, and they're kind of just at a loss because they don't know anything about this magical world, and everyone else is like from this world. They're like sirens and selkies and vampires and werewolves and just people that have grown up and been immersed in this world their whole lives, whereas they are trying to figure that out as they go, and it leads to a lot of complications because their daughter was a human, raised in the human world, and now she has to be in this magical world. So the first 5 years of her life weren't in this either, and so there's a lot of that like, you aren't from here, you don't know our ways type of a situation that's very hard to deal with. And I really liked how Caitlin Rozakis dealt with those themes and dealing from it from a mother's perspective as well. This book is really cute. It has the same funny and endearing qualities that I really liked in Dreadful. This author's writing just hits for me and makes me laugh and is just really enjoyable and easy to read. I also like how she can take some commentary and go deeper with some subjects without it being dark and like unrelatable. I don't really read a lot of books from my mom's perspective because it's just not my thing. I did appreciate this one and I did really like it. I'm going to continue to read whatever Caitlin writes because I've enjoyed every single book so far of the 2 that I've read. And she has one that's like a startup from hell coming out. It looks so funny. It's next year, but still. And I also really liked the tension of the werewolf kid trying to find her place and the guilt the mom carries and how it's dealt with in therapy. And also kind of with the friends that she does make along the way. Like, it's a pretty cute, heartwarming story, as well as deals with some big elements for the mom and the daughter. But super cute. And I finished that one on Halloween, so that was the last book that I was able to read in October. Sorry, this was a lot of books randomly, but that's how it goes sometimes. Please comment down below your favorite read of October. But if you aren't sure, leave me a zombie emoji. Thank you so much for watching, but that is it for today's video. Please like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time. Stay safe and caffeinated. Bye.